remember to turn on all notifications so you don't miss a video. Ashi could become the best soccer anime. As I've said in another video, I think the manga of Ashi is on par with Farewell My Dear Kramer, but when it comes to anime adaptations, the Kramer anime completely dropped the ball, so Ashi has a tap-in right now. I read the manga to about chapter 100 before, but I won't be spoiling anything that hasn't happened in the anime yet. The first thing I love about Ashi is how realistic the playing of soccer is. I have a video on it already, but one of my main problems with sports anime is how fantastical they can get. Stories will completely ignore the actual tactics and rules of the game and physics in favor of superpowers, which feels like a spit in the face to anyone who actually likes the sport. But when stories play it realistically, the writers really have the skill and talent to make the matches as entertaining, or even more so, than a real match. But there are a few manga and anime that are able to balance realism with epicness. Volleyball has Haikyuu, basketball has Ahiru no Sora, and finally, soccer or football has Ashi. Looking at Ashito's development as a player will show the many ways this story adheres to real tactics in soccer. In sports manga, I believe there are three types of protagonist players. There's the complete newbie that's never played the sport, like in Slam Dunk. There's the pro, like in Kuroko. And then there's the middle ground, which Ashi has. The last one is my preferred type because they aren't useless, but they also have room to grow. Ashito is not an amateur. He knows how to do soccer moves that are centered around him. For example, he can dribble and shoot well. But when it comes to techniques that are team-based, like passing, positioning, or trapping the ball, he's below average, and he has to learn and practice these things throughout the story. The reason he sucks at teamwork is because he used to play on teams that were centered around him doing everything. But unlike Blue Lock, this manga knows that soccer is a sport where teamwork makes the dream work, and it puts a lot of emphasis on this. It doesn't have any nonsense like one star player being the focus and carrying the team on his back. All 11 players are important. If you play or watch soccer, seeing Ashito learn these basics is nostalgic, and it pleases me that the author finds a way to creatively teach these basics to the audience through the story. It shows actual care for the sport, and it shows skill at synthesizing story elements. The first thing Ashito needs to learn to do is how to trap the ball properly. In the anime, they call it killing the ball. They don't spell it out completely, but the problem with the way he traps is that he stops the ball in place. What the coaches and teammates want him to do is to trap or receive the ball into space instead of at a stationary position. If you play or watch soccer, you'll know that players are supposed to do this, and it'll put a smile on your face. I can personally remember the first time a coach had to drill this lesson into my head. The next thing the protagonist has to learn is how triangles work. A minimum of 3 players should always form a triangle, so that the player with the ball always has 2 different options. Ashito would obviously not know this because he's used to doing all of the work on a team. But when he finally learns this lesson and starts chopping up the opponent's defense with his allies, it's exhilarating. It reminds me of times where I've seen pros do that, or when I've been part of an epic chain of passes like that. Next, Ashito has to learn to quickly check his surroundings, especially before receiving a pass. This allows a player to know where their allies and opponents are so that they can make a decision as soon as they receive the ball. I also remember when I was taught this lesson, and as I said before, the adherence to real soccer concepts is amazing. Lastly, Ashito has been put in defense, and he has to learn how to shift. In the anime, they call it the shuffle. This is when the defensive line shifts to cover when one of the fullbacks moves forward to support the offense. Like the other skills, I can pinpoint the year I learned this, and I'm astonished at how smoothly the author integrated this lesson into the story. Ashito is a striker, yet they find a believable way to put him in the defense, allowing him to learn shifting and indirectly teach it to the audience as well. By switching his position, it allows the story to continue exploring and teaching the different facets of the sport through the protagonist's lenses. Genius. At 16 episodes, the story has already gone over 4 different unique skills in soccer. What's also surprising is how they didn't go for the easy ones. The author could have easily taught shooting or passing, things that would be most entertaining to casual fans, but he went with less flashy, but just as important techniques. I applaud him for that. He's also giving spotlight to defenders, who are criminally underrated in the sport of soccer. Now, the characters. The protagonist is okay. There isn't much special to say about him, but the dynamic he has with the other characters is interesting. In Esperion, he's friends with Otomo, Tachibana, and Togashi. Each of them have at least one unique character trait to stand out. These 4 are new to Esperion and got in through tryouts, which puts them in conflict with those who got promoted through the junior youth team. Kuroda says that only 9 got promoted, which is lower than usual. This probably means that other youth team players lost their potential spots to tryout players. This conflict is effortlessly synthesized with Ashito learning the triangle, and it prevents the factions from working together well. The two groups play differently, and the protagonist has to learn how to understand the youth players in order to perform the triangle and start playing effectively. The protagonist's relationship with Coach Fukuda is unusual. Fukuda seems like an ally to him at first, but his goal was always to place Ashito in the defense because that's where he'd be most useful to his team. As someone who wants to score goals, this goes against his desires, but Fukuda basically tells him that it's either that or he leaves the team. The protagonist's eventual acceptance of this is another example of putting the team first. He'll have to learn to make assists rather than being a goal scorer. Fukuda also uses another coach to play an antagonistic role in order to further manipulate Ashito. The twist of being a manipulative person and technically an antagonist to the protagonist is an interesting choice that I haven't seen many times. Akutsu is another interesting character. He's on the A team, but he's constantly trying to crush Ashito and get him to quit. The future of this anime is truly bright. Things that have yet to come are Ashito mastering his defensive position, Tachibana having a character arc, Togashi's backstory, Kaneda facing off against his former tryout friends that he now despises, Ashito and Akutsu's relationship developing, and of course, epic matches. Another thing this anime does is effectively using a slow start. The anime is 16 episodes in, but so far, there's never been a serious match shown in full. Most of the time, the characters are either practicing, or a small amount of a real game is shown. In fact, Ashito only joins the team in episode 6. Anime like Haikyuu and Ahiru have matches that last for several episodes, but Ashi has yet to do that. The first long match I can recall in the manga is Esperion vs Musashino. This match starts in chapter 94. Episode 16 stopped at the end of chapter 74, so there are still a few more episodes before that match arrives. This slow start allows the characters to be developed as people and as players. Ashito can learn all the skills I mentioned previously before being placed into an epic match, which allows Ashito to not be the best at the start and eventually play at a high level when the story is ready to stun the audience. This means that the matches won't have to slow down in order to provide necessary context, and that once the story picks up speed, it hopefully won't have to slow down since the foundation has already been laid. The last part of the story I want to analyze is the grounded part that is outside of the sport itself. Since the team the main character is on is a soccer club, and not his school team, the cost of the club has been taken into consideration. Since the Aois are kinda poor, the family has to really consider whether they're willing to send him to the club or not. Ashito really cares for his mom, as shown in the first episode when he snaps after she's insulted by a player on the opposing team. He wants to make her life better, and believes that going pro is the way to do that. His mom understands this, but also feels like soccer is taking him away from her. All of these conflicts add weight to Ashito's goal and facilitate the emotional scene where he reads his mother's message to him on the train. His classmates leaving class to see him off is also an emotional moment that is grounded in the fact that he's leaving his school and his hometown to dedicate his life to a soccer club. These are both in episode 5 and are some of the most emotional, bittersweet moments I've seen. To quickly go over my issues, I don't like about half of the comedy. Ashito's comedic scenes usually consist of him bragging while the art style becomes super deformed. I wouldn't mention it if it didn't happen several times each episode. It's not funny and often breaks from an entertaining match. Another problem is how whiny Ashito was when he was put in defense. I understand the frustration of not being able to score goals when that's what you love to do, but he was obnoxious about it. At the end of the day, he's still playing soccer and can still go pro. Even when he plays in defense, he's constantly complaining about how he hates it. This eventually dies down as he gets better at his position. In conclusion, Ashi is able to stay true to the sport, but still serve spectacle, like Haikyuu and Ahiru. It effectively teaches important skills from the sport through Ashito's development as a player, and synthesizes them into the plot and the character dynamics that are occurring. The dynamic between the players on Esperion is interesting and adds content to the story that I haven't really seen in other sports anime. Its slow start is used effectively to build the foundation, and also allows for the grounded and emotional events at the beginning of the story. Ashi is on his way to becoming the best football or soccer anime, and I'll probably make a sequel to this essay once the season finishes or hits a major checkpoint. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, and help me revolutionize the manga industry by buying my manga and spreading the word. All important links will be in the description.